The moon was well up by the time he turned his steps back toward his elm. Behind him, Ashford Meadow was ablaze with torchlight. The sounds of song and laughter drifted across the grass, but his own mood was somber. He could think of only one way to raise the coin for his armor, and if he should be defeated, one victory is all I need, he muttered aloud. That's not so much to hope for. Even so, the old man would never have hoped for it. Sir Arlen had not ridden the tilt since the day he had been unhorsed by the Prince of Dragonstone, an attorney at Storm's End, many years before. It is not every man who can boast that he broke 7 lances against the finest knight in the 7 kingdoms, he would say. I could never hope to do better. So why would I try? Dunk had suspected that Sir Arlen's age had more to do with it than the Prince of Dragonstone did, but he never dared to say as much. The old man had his pride, even at the last. I am quick, I'm strong. He always said so. What was true for him need not be true for me, he told himself stubbornly. He was moving through a patch of weed, chewing over his chances in his head, when he saw the flicker of firelight through the bushes. What is this? What the hell? Dunk did not stop to think. Suddenly, his sword was in his hand, and he was crashing through the grass. He burst out, roaring and cursing, only to jerk to a sudden halt at the sight of the boy sitting by the campfire. You? He lowered the sword. What are you doing here? Cooking a fish, said the bald boy. Do you want some, sir? I meant, how did you get here? Did you steal a horse? I rode in the back of a cart with a man who was bringing some lambs to the castle for my lord of Ashford's table. Well, you best see if he's gone yet, or find another cart. I won't have you here. You can't make me go, the boy said, impertinent. I'd had enough of that inn. I'll have no more insolence from you, Dunk warned. I should throw you over my horse right now and take you home. You need to ride all the way to King's Landing, said the boy. You'd miss the tournament. King's Landing? For a moment, Dunk wondered if he was being mocked, but the boy had no way of knowing that he had been born in King's Landing as well. Another wretch from Flea Bottom, like as not, and who can blame him for wanting to leave that place? He felt foolish, standing there with a sword in hand over an 8-year-old orphan. He sheathed it, glowering, so the boy could see that he would suffer no nonsense. I ought to give him a good beating at the least, he thought. But the child looked so pitiful, he could not bring himself to hit him. He glanced around the camp. The fire was burning merrily within a neat circle of rocks. The horses had been brushed, and clothes were hanging from the elm, drying above the flames. What are those doing there? I washed them, the boy said, and I groomed the horses, I made the fire, I caught us some fish. I would have raised your pavilion, sir, but I couldn't find it. There's my pavilion. Dunk swept a hand above his head at the branches of the tall elm that loomed above them. That's a tree, the boy said, unimpressed. It's all the pavilion a true knight needs. I would sooner sleep under the stars than in some smoky tent. What if it rains? The tree will shelter me. Trees leak. So they do, Dunk laughed. Well, if truth be told, I lack the coin for a pavilion, and you'd best turn that fish, or it'll be burned on the bottom and raw on the top. You'd never make a kitchen boy. I would if I wanted, the boy said, but he turned the fish nonetheless. What happened to your hair? Dunk asked of him. The maester shaved it off. Suddenly, self-conscious, the boy pulled up the hood of his dark brown cloak, covering his head. Dunk had heard that they did that sometimes, to treat lice or rootworms, or certain sicknesses. Are you ill? No, said the boy. What's your name? Dunk, he said. The wretched boy laughed aloud, as if that was the funniest thing that he had ever heard. Dunk? Dunk? Like Sir Dunk? That's no name for a knight. Is it short for something? Perhaps Duncan? Was it? The old man had called him just Dunk for so long as he could recall, and he did not remember much of his life prior to Sir Arlen. Duncan. Yes, he said. Sir Duncan of. Dunk had no other names, nor any house, nor any titles. Sir Arlen had found him living in the wild stews and alleys of Flea Bottom. He had never known his father or mother. What was he to say? Sir Duncan of Flea Bottom? That didn't sound very knightly. He could take up Pennytree for his own, but what if they asked him where it was? Dunk had never been to Pennytree, nor had the old man talked much about it. He frowned for a moment, then suddenly blurted out, Sir Duncan the Tall. I mean, he was tall. No one could dispute that. And it sounded puissant enough, though the little sneak did not seem to think so. I have never heard of any Sir Duncans the Tall. Do you know every knight in the Seven Kingdoms then? The boy looked at him boldly and replied, I know all the good ones. I'm as good as any. After the tourney, they'll all know that. Do you have a name, thief? The boy hesitated. Egg, he said. Dunk did not laugh. His head does look like an egg. Small boys can be cruel, and grown men as well. Egg, he said. I should beat you bloody and send you on your way. But the truth is, I have no pavilion, and I have no squire either. If you'll swear to do as you're told, I'll let you serve me for the tourney. After that, well, we'll have to see. If I decide you're worth your keep, you'll have clothes on your back and food in your belly. The clothes might be rough spun, and the food might be salt beef and salt fish, and maybe some venison from time to time when they are no foresters about. But you won't go hungry. And I promise not to beat you unless you deserve it. Egg smiled. Yes, my lord. Sir, Dunk corrected. I am only a hedge knight. He wondered if the old man was looking down on him. I will teach him the arts of battle, the same as you taught me, sir. He seems a likely lad. Might be one day he'll make a knight. The fish was still a little raw on the inside when they ate it, and the boy had not removed all the bones, but it still tasted a world better than hard salt beef. Egg soon fell asleep beside the dying fire. Dunk lay on his back nearby, his big hands behind his head, gazing up at the night sky. He could hear distant music from the tourney grounds, half a mile away. The stars were everywhere, thousands and thousands of them. One fell as he was watching, a bright green streak that flashed across the black, then was gone. A falling star brings luck to him who sees it, Dunk thought. But the rest of them are all in their pavilions by now, staring up at silk instead of sky. So the luck is mine, and mine alone. In the morning, he woke to the sound of a cock crowing. Egg was still there, curled up beneath the old man's second best cloak. Well, the boy did not run off during the night. That's a start. He prodded him awake with his foot. Up! There's work to do. The boy rose quick enough, rubbing his eyes. Help me saddle Sweetfoot, Dunk told him. What about breakfast? There's salt beef. After we're done. I'd sooner eat the horse, Egg said. Sir, you'll eat my fist if you don't do as you're told. Get the brushes. They're in the saddle sack. Yes, that one. Together, they brushed out the palfrey sorrel coat, hefted Sir Arlen's best saddle over her back, and cinched it tight. Egg was a good worker once he put his mind to it, Dunk noticed. I expect I'll be gone most of the day, he told the boy as he mounted. You're to stay here and put the camp in order. Make sure no other thieves come nosing about. Can I have a sword to run him off with? Egg asked. He had blue eyes, Dunk saw. Very, very dark. Almost purple. His bald head made them seem huge somehow. No, said Dunk. A knife's enough. And you had best be here when I come back. Do you hear me? Rob me or run off, and I'll hunt you down, I swear I will. With dogs. You don't have any dogs, Egg pointed out. I'll get some, said Dunk. Just for you. He turned Sweetfoot's head toward the meadow and moved off at a brisk trot, hoping the threat would be enough to keep the boy honest. Save for the clothes on his back, the armor in his sack, and the horse beneath him, everything Dunk owned in the world was back at that camp. I am a great fool to trust the boy so far, but it is no more than the old man did for me, he reflected. The mother must have sent him to me so that I can pay my debts. As he crossed the field, he heard the ring of hammers from the riverside, where carpenters were nailing together jousting barriers and raising a lofty viewing stand. A few new pavilions were going up as well, while the knights who had come earlier slept off last night's revels or sat to break their fasts. Dunk could smell wood smoke and bacon as well. To the north of the meadow flowed the river Cockleswent, a vassal stream to the mighty Mander. Beyond the shallow ford lay town and castle. Dunk had seen many a market town during his journeys with the old man. This was prettier than most. The whitewashed houses with their thatched roofs had an inviting aspect to them. When he was smaller, he used to wonder what it would be like to live in such a place, to sleep every night with a roof over your head and wake every morning with the same walls wrapped around you. It may be that soon I'll know. An egg too. It could happen. Stranger things happened every day. Ashford Castle was a stone structure built in the shape of a triangle, with round towers rising 30 feet tall at each point and thick, crenellated walls running between them. Orange banners flew from its battlements, displaying the white sun and chevron sigil of its lord. Men at arms in orange and white livery stood outside the gates with halberds, watching people come and go, seemingly more intent on joking with a pretty milkmaid than in keeping anyone out. Dunk reined up in front of the short, bearded man he took for their captain and asked for the master of games. It's the plumber you want? He's steward here, I'll show you. Inside the yard, a stable boy took Sweetfoot for him. Dunk slung Sir Arlen's battered shield over his shoulder and followed the guard's captain back of the stables to a turret built into an angle of the curtain wall. Steep stone steps led up to the wall walk. Come tell into your master's name for the list, the captain asked as they climbed. It's my own name I'll be putting in. Is it now? Was the man smirking? Dunk was not certain. That door there. I'll leave you to it and get back to me both. When Dunk opened the door, the steward was sitting at a trestle table, scratching on a piece of parchment with a quill. He had thinning gray hair and a narrow, pinched face. Yes, he said, looking up. What do you want, man? Dunk pulled shut the door. Are you Plumber, the steward? I come for the tourney? To enter the lists. Plumber pursed his lips. My lord's tourney is a contest for knights. Are you a knight? He nodded, wondering if his ears were red. A knight with a name, mayhaps? Come on, man. Dunk. Why in the world did he say that? Sir Duncan. Sir Duncan the Tall. And where might you be from, Sir Duncan the Tall? Every place. I was squire to Sir Arlen of Pennytree since I was 5 or 6. This is his shield. He showed it to the steward. He was coming to the tourney, but he caught a chill and died. So I came in his stead. He knighted me before he passed, with his own sword. Dunk drew the longsword and laid it on a scarred wooden table between them. The master of the list gave the blade no more than a glance. A sword it is, for a certainty. I have never heard of this Arlen of Penetry, however. You were his squire, you say? He always said he meant for me to be a knight, as he was. When he was dying, he called for his longsword and bade me kneel. He touched me once on my right shoulder, once on my left. He said some words, and when I got up, he said I was a knight. The man plumber rubbed his nose. Any knight can make a knight, it is true, though it is more customary to stand a vigil and be anointed by a septum before taking your vows. Were there any witnesses to the dubbing? Only a robin up in a thorn tree. I heard it as the old man was saying the words. He charged me to be a good knight and true, to obey the seven gods, defend the weak and the innocent, serve my lord faithfully, and defend the realm with all my might. And I swore that I would. No doubt. Plummer did not deign to call him sir. Dunk could not help but notice that. I shall need to consult with Lord Ashford. Will you or your late master be known to any of the good knights here assembled? Dunk thought for a moment. There was a pavilion flying the banner of House Dondarian? The black with the purple lightning? That would be Sir Manfred of that house. Sir Orland served his lord father in Dorne. 3 years past. Sir Manfred might remember me. I would advise you to speak to him. If he will vouch for you, bring him here with you on the morrow, at this same time. As you say, my lord. He started for the door. Sir Duncan, the steward called after him. Dunk turned back. You are aware, the man said, that those vanquished in tourney forfeit their arms, their armor, and horse to the victors, and must needs to ransom them back. I know. And do you have the coins to pay such ransoms? Now he knew his ears were red. I won't have need for coin, he said, praying it was true. All I need is one victory. If I win my first tilt, I'll have the losers' armor and their gold and their horse, and I can stand a loss myself. He walked slowly down the steps, reluctant to get on with what he must do next. In the yard, he collared one of the stable boys. I must speak with Lord Ashford's master of horse. I'll find him for you, the boy replied. It was cool and dim in the stables. An unruly gray stallion snapped at him as he passed, but Sweetfoot only whickered softly and nuzzled his hand when he raised it to her nose. You're a good girl, aren't you? Good girl, Dunk murmured. The old man had always said that a knight should never love a horse, since more than a few were like to die under him. But he never heeded his own counsel either. Dunk had often seen him spend his last copper on an apple for old Chestnut, or some oats for Sweetfoot and Thunder. The palfrey had been Sir Arlen's riding horse, and she had borne him tirelessly over thousands of miles all up and down the Seven Kingdoms. Dunk felt as though he was betraying an old friend. But what choice did he have? Chestnut was too old to be worth much of anything, and Thunder must carry him in the lists. Some time passed before the master of horse deigned to appear. As he waited, Dunk heard a blare of trumpets from the walls and voices in the yard. Curious, he led Sweetfoot to the stable door to see what was happening. A large party of knights and mounted archers poured through the gates. 100 men at the least, riding some of the most splendid horses that Dunk had ever seen. Some great lord has come. He grabbed the arm of a stable boy as he ran past. Who are they? The boy looked at him queerly. Can't you see the banner, sir? He wrenched free and hurried off. The banners? As Dunk turned his head, a gust of wind lifted the black silk pennon atop the tall staff. and the fierce three-headed dragon of House Targaryen seemed to spread its wings, breathing scarlet fire. The banner bearer was a tall knight in white scale armor, chased with gold, a pure white cloak streaming from his shoulders. Two of the other riders were armored in white from head to heel as well. Kingsguard knights with the royal banner. Small wonder Lord Ashford and his sons came hurrying out the doors of the keep, and the fair maid too, a short girl with yellow hair and a round pink face. She does not seem so fair to me, Dunk thought. The puppet girl was prettier. Boy, let go of that nag and see to my horse. A rider had dismounted in front of the stables. He is talking to me, Dunk realized. I am not a stable boy, my lord. Not clever enough. The speaker wore a black cloak bordered in scarlet satin, but underneath was raiment bright as flame, all reds and yellows and golds. Slim and straight as a dirk, though only of middling height, he was near Dunk's own age. Curls of silver gold hair framed a face sculpted and imperious, high brow and sharp cheekbones, a straight nose, pale smooth skin without a blemish. His eyes were a deep violet color. If you cannot manage a horse, fetch me some wine and a pretty wench. I, my lord, pardons. I'm no servant man either. I have the honor to be a knight. Knighthood has fallen on sad days, said the princeling. But then one of the stable boys came rushing up, and he turned away to hand him the reins of his palfrey, a splendid blood bay. Dunk was forgotten in an instant. Relieved, he slunk back inside the stables to wait for the master of horse. He felt ill at ease enough around the lords in their pavilions. He had no business talking to princes. That the beautiful stripling was a prince, he had no doubt. The Targaryens were the blood of lost Valyria across the seas, and their silver gold hair and violet eyes set them apart from common men. Dunk knew Prince Baelor was older, but the youth might well have been one of his sons, Valar, who was often called the young prince to set him apart from his father, or Mataris, the even younger prince, as old Lord Swan's fool had named him once. There were other princelings as well, cousins to Valar and Mataris. King Daeron the Good had 4 grown sons, 3 with sons of their own. The line of the Dragon Kings had almost died out during his father's day, but it was commonly said that Daeron, the second of his name, and his sons had left it secure for all time. You man, you asked for me. Lord Ashford's master of horse had a red face, made redder by his orange livery and his brusque manner of speaking. What is it? I have no time for. I want to sell this palfrey. Dunk broke in quickly, before the man could dismiss him. She is a good horse, sure of foot. I have no time, I tell you. I have no time for this. The man gave Sweetfoot no more than a glance. My lord of Ashford has no need of such. Take her to the town, perhaps. Henley. He's a stableman there. Perhaps Henley will give you a silver or 3. That quick, he was turning away. Thank you, my lord, Dunk said before he can go. My lord, has the king come? The master of horse laughed at him. No, thank the gods, the king? This infestation of princes is trivial enough. Where am I going to find the stalls for all these damn animals? And the fodder? He strode off shouting at his stable boys. By the time Dunk left the stable, Lord Ashford had escorted his princely guests into the hall. But 2 of the Kingsguard knights in their white armor and snowy cloaks still lingered in the yard, talking with the captain of the guard. Dunk halted before them. My lords, I am Sir Duncan de Tall. Well met, Sir Duncan, answered the bigger of the white knights. I am Sir Roland Crakehall. This is my sworn brother, Sir Donald of Duskendale. The 7 champions of the Kingsguard were the most puissant warriors in all of the 7 kingdoms, saving only perhaps the crown prince, Baelor Breakspear himself. Have you come to enter the list? Dunk asked anxiously. It would not be fitting for us to ride against those who we are sworn to protect, sir, answered Sir Donald, red of hair and beard. Prince Valar has the honor to be one of Lady Ashford's champions, explained Sir Roland. and 2 of his cousins mean to challenge. The rest of us have come only to watch. Relieved, Dunk thanked the white knights for their kindness and their chivalry, and rode out through the gates before another prince should think to accost him. 3 princelings, he pondered as he turned the palfrey toward the streets of Ashfordtown. Valar was the eldest son of Prince Baelor, second in line to the Iron Throne. But Dunk did not know much of his father's fabled prowess. But Dunk did not know how much of his father's fabled prowess with lance and sword he might have inherited. About the other Targaryen princes, he knew even less. What will I do if I have to ride against a prince? Will I even be allowed to challenge someone so highborn? He did not know the answer. The old man had often said he was thick as a castle wall, and just now he felt it. Henley liked the look of Sweetfoot well enough until he heard Dunk wanted to sell her. Then, all the stablemen could see in her were the faults. He offered 300 silvers. Dunk said it must be 3,000 he meant. After much arguing and cursing, they settled at 750 silver stags. That was a deal closer to Henley's starting price than to Dunk's, which made him feel like the loser. But the stableman would go no higher. So in the end, he had no choice but to yield. A second argument began when Dunk declared that the price did not include the saddle, and Henley insisted that it indeed did. Finally, it was settled. As Henley left to fetch his coin, Dunk stroked Sweetfoot's mane and told her to be brave. If I win, I'll come back and buy you again, baby girl, I promise. He had no doubt that all the palfrey's flaws would vanish in the intervening days, and she would be worth twice what she was worth today. The stableman gave him 3 gold pieces and the rest in silver. Dunk bit one of the gold coins and smiled. He had never tasted gold before, nor had he handled it. Dragons, men called the coins, since they were stamped with the 3-headed dragon of House Targaryen on one side. The other bore the likeness of the king. 2 of the coins Henley gave him had King Daeron's face. The third was older, well worn, and showed a different man. His name was there under his head, but Dunk could not read the letters. Gold had been shaved off its edges too, he noticed. He pointed this out to Henley, and loudly. The stableman grumbled, but handed over another few silvers and a fistful of coppers to make up for the weight. Dunk handed a few of the coppers right back, nodded at Sweetfoot, and said, "That's for her," he said. "See that she has some oats tonight. Aye, and an apple too." With the shield on his arm and the sack of old armor slung over his shoulder, Dunk set out on foot through the sunny streets of Ashfordtown. The heft of all that coin in his pouch made him feel queer, almost giddy on one hand and anxious on the other. The old man had never trusted him with more than a coin or two at a time. He could live a year on this much money. And what will I do when it's gone? Sell thunder? That road ended in beggary or outlawry. This chance will never come again. I must risk it all. By the time he splashed back across the ford to the south bank of the Cockles the morning was almost done, and the tourney grounds had come to life once more. The wine sellers and sausage makers were doing a brisk trade. A dancing bear was shuffling along to his master's playing as a singer sang, the Bear, and the Maiden Fair." Jugglers were juggling, and the puppeteers were just finishing another fight. Dunk stopped to watch the wooden dragon slain. When the puppet knight cut his head off and the red sawdust spilled out onto the grass, he laughed aloud and threw the girl 2 coppers. "One for last night," Dunk called. She caught the coins in the air and threw him back a smile as sweet as any he had ever seen. "Is it me she smiles at, or is it my coin?" Dunk had never been with a girl, and they made him nervous. Once, 3 years past, when the old man's purse was full after half a year in the service of blind Lord Florent, he told Dunk the time had come to take him to a brothel and to make him a man. He'd been drunk, though, and when he was sober, he did not remember. Dunk had been too embarrassed to remind him. He was not certain he wanted a whore anyway. If he could not have a high-born maiden like a proper knight, He wanted one who at least liked him more than his silver. Will you drink a horn of ale? He asked the puppet girl as she was scooping the sawdust blood back into her dragon. With me, I mean. Or a sausage. I had a sausage last night. It was good. You're made with pork, I think. I thank you, my lord, but we have another show. The girl rose and ran off to the fierce fat Dornish woman who worked the puppet knight while Dunk stood there feeling stupid. He liked the way she ran, though. A pretty girl, and she was tall. I would not have to kneel to kiss that one. He knew how to kiss. A tavern girl had showed him one night in Lannisport a year ago, but she'd been so short she had to sit on the table to reach his lips. The memory made his ears burn. What a great fool he was. It was jousting he should be thinking about right now, not kissing girls. Lord Ashford's carpenters were whitewashing the waist-high wooden barriers that would separate the jousters. Dunk watched them work for a while. There were 5 lanes, arrayed north to south, so none of the competitors would ride with the sun in his eyes. A 3-tiered viewing stand had been raised on the eastern side of the lists, with an orange canopy to shield the lords and ladies from rain and sun. Most would sit on the benches, but 4 high-backed chairs had been erected in the center of the platform for Lord Ashford, the fair maid, and the visiting princess. On the eastern verge of the meadow, a contain had been set up and a dozen knights were tilting at it, sending the polearm spinning. Every time they struck, the splintered shield suspended from one end. Dunk watched the Brute of Bracken take his turn, then Lord Caron of the Marches. I do not have as good a seat as any of them, he thought uneasily. Elsewhere, men were training afoot, going at each other with wooden swords, while their squires stood shouting ribald advice. Dunk watched a stocky youth try to hold off a muscular knight who seemed lithe and quick as a mountain cat. Both had the red apple of the Fossways painted on their shields, but the younger man's was soon hacked and chipped to pieces. Here's an apple that's not ripe yet, the older said as he slammed the other's helm. The younger Fossaway was bruised and bloody by the time he yielded, but his face was hardly winded. He raised his visor, looked about, saw Dunk, and said, You there! Yes, you! The big one! Knight of the Winged Chalice! Is that a longsword you wear? It is mine by rights, Dunk said defensively. I am Sir Duncan the Toll. And I, Sir Stefan Fossaway. Would you care to try me, Sir Duncan the Tall? It would be good to have someone new to cross swords with. My cousin's not ripe yet, as you've seen. Do it, Sir Duncan, urged the beaten Fossaway as he removed his helm. I may not be right, but my good cousin rotten to the core. Knock the seeds out of his ass. Dunk shook his head. Why were these lordlings involving him in their quarrel? He wanted no part of it. I thank you, sir, but I have matters to attend to. He was uncomfortable carrying so much coin. The sooner he paid Steely Pate and got his armor, the happier he would be. Sir Stefan glanced at him scornfully. The Hedge Knight has matters. He glanced about and found another likely opponent loitering nearby. Sir Grants, well met. Come try me. I know every feeble trick my cousin Raymond has mastered. And it seems that Sir Duncan needs to return to the hedges. Ha ha! Come, try me. Dunk stalked away, red-faced. He did not have many tricks himself, feeble or otherwise. And he did not want anyone to see him fight until the tourney. The old man said that the better you knew your foe, the easier it was to best him. Knights like Sir Stefan had quick eyes to find a man's weakness at a glance. Dunk was strong and quick, and his weight and reach were in his favor, but he did not believe for a moment that his skills were the equal of these others. Sir Arlen had taught him the best he could, but the old man had never been the greatest of knights even when he was young. Great knights did not live their lives in the hedge, nor did they die on the side of a muddy road. That will not happen to me, Dunk vowed to himself. I will show them that I can be more than a hedge knight. Sir Duncan? The younger Fossaway hurried to catch him. I should not have urged you to try my cousin. I was angry with his arrogance. And you are so large, I thought, well, it was wrong of me. You wear no armor. He would have broken your hand if he could, or a knee. He likes to batter men in the training yard so that they will be bruised and vulnerable later should he meet them in the lists. He did not break you. No, but I am his own blood, though his is the senior branch of the apple tree, as he never ceases to remind me. I am Raymond Fossaway. Well met. Will you and your cousin ride in the tourney? He will for a certainty. As to me, would that I could, but I'm only a squire. My cousin has promised to knight me, but insists that I'm not ripe yet. Raymond had a square face, a pug nose, and short woolly hair, but his smile was very engaging. You have the look of a challenger, it seems to me. Whose shield do you mean to strike? It makes no difference, said Dunk. That was what you were supposed to say, though it made all the difference in the world. I will not enter the list until the third day. And by then, some of the champs will have fallen, yes, Raymond said. Well, may the warrior smile on you, sir. And you. If he is only a squire, what business do I have being a knight? One of us is a fool. The silver in Dunk's pouch clinked with every step, but he could lose it all in a heartbeat, he knew. Even the rules of this tourney worked against him, making it very unlikely that he would face a green or a feeble foe. There were a dozen different forms a tourney might follow, according to the whim of the lord who hosts it. Some were mock battles between teams of knights, others were wild melees where the glory went to the last fighter left standing. Where individual combats were the rule, pairings were sometimes determined by lot and sometimes by the master of the games. Lord Ashford was staging this tourney to celebrate his daughter's 13th name day. The fair maid will sit by her father's side as the reigning queen of love and beauty. 5 champions wearing her favors would defend her. All others must perforce be challengers. But any man who could defeat one of the champions would take his place and stand as a champion himself until such time as another challenger unseats him. At the end of 3 days of jousting, the 5 who remained would determine whether the fair maid retained the crown of love and beauty, or whether another would wear it in her place. Dunk stared at the grassy lists and the empty chairs on the viewing stand and pondered his chances. One victory was all he needed, and he could name himself one of the champions of Ashford Meadow, if only for an hour. The old man had lived nigh on 60 years and had never been a champion. It is not too much to hope for, if the gods are good. He thought back on all the songs he had heard, songs of blind Simeon Star Eyes and noble Serwyn of the Mirror Shield, of Prince Emin, the Dragon Knight, Sir Riam Redwine, and Florian the Fool. They had all won victories against foes far more terrible than any he would face. But they were great heroes, brave men of noble birth. Except for Florian, of course. And what am I? Dunk of Flea Bottom? Or am I Sir Duncan the Tall? He supposed he would learn the truth of that soon enough. He hefted the sack of armor and turned his feet toward the merchant's stalls in search of steely pate. Egg had worked manfully at the campsite. Dunk was pleased. He had been half afraid his squire would run off again. Did you get a good price for your palfrey, sir? The boy asked excitedly. How do you know I even sold her? Well, since you asked, you rode off on a horse and you walked back without a horse. And if robbers had stolen her, I'd like to believe that you'd be way more angry than you are now. I got enough for this. Dunk took out his new armor to show the boy. If you're ever going to be a knight, you'll need to know good steel from bad. Look here, this is fine work. This mail is double chain, each link bound to 2 others. See? It gives more protection than single chain. And the helm, Pate's rounded at the top. See how it curves? A sword or an axe will slide right off, where they might bite through a flat-topped helm. Dunk lowered the great helm over his head. How does it look? There's no visor, Egg pointed out. There are air holes. Visors are points of weakness. Steely Pate had said as much. If you knew how many knights had taken an arrow in the eye as they lifted their visor for a suck of cool air, you'd never want one, he told Dunk. There's no crest either, said Egg. It's just plain. Dunk lifted off the helm. Plain is fine for the likes of me. See how bright the steel is? It will be your task to keep it that way. You know how to scour mail? In a barrel of sand, said the boy. But you don't have a barrel. Did you buy a pavilion too, sir? I didn't get that good of a price. The boy is too bold for his own good. I ought to beat that out of him. He knew he would not, though. He liked the boldness. He needed to be more bold himself. My squire is braver than I am, and he's more clever than I am. You did well here, Egg, Dunk told him. On the morrow, you'll come with me. Have a look at the tourney grounds. We'll buy oats for the horses and fresh bread for ourselves. Maybe a bit of cheese as well. They were selling good cheese at one of the stalls. I won't need to go in the castle, will I? Why not? One day, I mean to live in a castle. I hope to win a place above the salt before I'm done. The boy said nothing. Perhaps he fears to enter a lord's hall, Dunk reflected. That's no more than might be expected. He will grow out of it in time. He went back to admiring his armor and wondering how long he would wear it. Sir Manfred was a thin man with a sour look on his face. He wore a black surcoat slashed with the purple lightning of House Dondarrion, but Dunk would have remembered him anyway by his unruly mane of red gold hair. Sir Arlen served your Lord Father when he and Lord Karen burned the Vulture King out of the Red Mountains. Sir, he said from one knee. I was only a boy then, but I squired for him. Sir Arlen of Penetry. Sir Manfred scowled. No, I know him not, nor do I know you, boy. Dunk showed him the old man's shield. This was his sigil, the winged chalice. My lord father took 800 knights and near 4,000 foot into those mountains. I cannot be expected to remember every one of them, nor what shields they carried. It may be that you were with us, but... Sir Manfred shrugged. Dunk was struck speechless for an instant. The old man took a wound in your father's service. How can you have forgotten him? They will not allow me to challenge unless some knight or lord watch for me. And what is that to me? Said Sir Manfred. I have given you enough of my time, sir. Be gone. If he went back to the castle without Sir Manfred, he was lost. Dunk eyed the purple lightning embroidered across the black wool of Sir Manfred's surcoat and said, I remember your father telling the count how your house got its sigil. One stormy night, as the first of your line bore a message across the Dornish marches, an arrow killed his horse beneath him and spilled him on the ground. 2 Dornishmen came out of the darkness in ringmail and crested helms. His sword had broken beneath him when he fell. When he saw that, he thought he was doomed. But as the Dornishmen closed to cut him down, lightning cracked from the sky. It was bright, burning purple, and it split, striking the Dornishmen in their steel and killing them both where they stood. The message gave the Storm King victory over the Dornish, and in thanks, he raised the messenger to lordship. He was the first Lord Dondarrion, so he took for his arm a forked purple lightning bolt on a black field, powdered with the stars. If Dunk thought that tale will impress Sir Manfred, he could not have been more wrong. Every potboy and groom who has ever served my father hears that story sooner or later. Knowing it does not make you a knight. Be gone with you, sir. I won't say it again. It was with a leaden heart that Dunk returned to Ashford Castle, wondering what he might say so that Plumber would grant him the right of challenge. The steward was not in his turret chamber, however. A guard told him he might be found in the great hall. Shall I wait here? Dunk asked. How long will he be? How should I know? Do what you please. The great hall was not so great as halls went, but Ashford was a small castle. Dunk entered through a side door and spied the steward at once. He was standing with Lord Ashford and a dozen other men at the top of the hall. He walked toward them, beneath a wall hung with wool tapestries of fruits and flowers. More concerned if they were your sons, I'll wager, an angry man was saying as Dunk approached. His straight hair and square cut beard were so fair they seemed white in the dimness of the hall. But as he got closer, he saw that they were in truth a pale silvery color, touched with gold. Dayron has done this before, another replied. Plummer was standing so as to block Dunk's view of the speaker. You should never have commanded him to enter the list. He belongs on a tourney field no more than Ares does, or Rhaegal. By which you mean he'd sooner ride a whore than a horse, the first man said, thickly built and powerful. The prince, he was surely a prince, wore a leather brigantine covered with silver studs beneath a heavy black cloak trimmed with ermine. Pock scars marked his cheeks, only partly concealed by his silvery beard. I do not need to be reminded of my son's failings, brother. He has only 18 years. He can change. He will change. Gods be damned, or I'll swear I'll see him dead. Don't be an utter fool. Daron is what he is, but he is still your blood, and mine. I have no doubt Sir Roland would turn him up, and Egan with him. When the tourney is over, perhaps. Arion is here. He is a better lance than Daron in any case. If it is the tourney that concerns you, Dunk could see the speaker now. He was seated in the high seat, a sheaf of parchments in one hand, Lord Ashford hovering at his shoulder. Even seated, he looked to be a head taller than the other. To judge from the long, straight legs stretched out before him, his short cropped hair was dark and peppered with gray, his strong jaw clean shaven. His nose looked as though it had been broken more than once. Though he was dressed very plainly in green doublet, brown mantle, and scuffed boots, there was a weight to this man. There was a sense of power and certainty to this man. It came to Dunk that he had walked in on something that he ought not have heard. I had best go back and come later when they're done, he decided. But it was already too late. The prince with the silvery beard suddenly took note of him. Who are you? What do you mean by bursting in on us? He demanded harshly. He is the knight that our good steward was expecting, the seated man said, smiling at Dunk in a way that suggested he had been aware of him the whole time. You and I are the intruders here, brother. Come closer, sir. Dunk edged forward, uncertain what was expected of him. He looked at Plummer, but got no help there. The pinch-faced steward, who had been so forceful yesterday, now stood silent, studying the stones of the floor. My lords, he said, I asked Sir Manfred Dondarrion to vouch for me so I might enter the list, but he refuses. He says he knows me not. Sir Arlen served him. Sir Arlen served him, I swear it. I have a sword, I have a shield, a shield and a sword do not make a knight, declared Lord Ashford, a big bald man with a round red face. Plummer has spoken to me of you. Even if we accept that these arms belong to this Sir Arlen of Pennytree, it may well be that you found him dead and stole them. Unless you have some better proof of what you say, some writing or, I remember Sir Arlen of Pennytree, the man in the high seat said quietly. He never won a tournament that I know about, but he never shamed himself either. At King's Landing, 16, maybe 17 years ago, he overthrew Lord Stokeworth and the bastard of Harrenhal in the melee. And many years before Atlantisport, he unhorsed the Grey Lion himself. The lion was not so gray then, to be sure. The man chuckled. He told me all about that. Many a time, said Dunk. The tall man studied him. Then you will remember the Grey Lion's true name. I have no doubt about it. For a moment, there was nothing in Dunk's head at all. 1,000 times the old man had told me that tale. 1,000 times. The lion. His name. What is his name? He was near despair when suddenly it came. Sir Damon Lannister! He shouted. The Grey Lion! He's the Lord of Casterly Rock now! Sir Damon Lannister! So he is, said the tall man pleasantly, and he enters the lists on the morrow. He rattled the sheaf of papers in his hands. How can you possibly remember some insignificant hedge knight who chanced to unhorse Damon Lannister 16 years ago? Said the prince with the silver beard, frowning. I make it a practice to learn all of my foes. Why would you deign to joust a hedge knight? It was 9 years ago at Storm's End. Lord Baratheon held the altitude to celebrate the birth of a grandson. The lots made Sir Arlen my opponent in the first tilt. We broke 4 lances before I finally unhorsed him. 7, insisted Dunk. And that was against the Prince of Dragonstone. No sooner were the words out than he wanted them back. Dunk the lunk, thick as a castle wall. He could hear the old man saying. So it was. The prince with the broken nose smiled gently. Tales grow in the telling, I know. Do not think ill of your old master, but it was 4 lances and not 7. Dunk was grateful that the hall was dim. He knew his ears were red. My lord. No, that's wrong too. Your grace. He fell to his knees and lowered his head. As you say, 4. I meant no I never, the old man, Sir Orlan, he used to say I was as thick as a castle wall and slow as an oryx. And strong as an oryx, by the look of you, said Baelor Breakspear. No harm was done, sir. Rise, on your feet. Dunk rose to his feet, wondering if he should keep his head down or if he was allowed to look a prince in the face. I am speaking with Baelor Targaryen, the Prince of Dragonstone, hand of the king, and heir apparent to the Iron Throne of Aegon the Conqueror. What could a hedge knight dare say to such a person? You gave him back his horse and armor and took no ransom. I remember. Dunk stammered. The old Sir Arlen, he told me you were the soul of chivalry, and that one day the 7 kingdoms will be safe in your hands. Not for many a year still, I pray, Prince Baelor said. No, no, your grace, I meant no. Dunk was horrified. I didn't mean that the king should die. I'm sorry, my lord. Your grace, I meant your grace. Belatedly, he recalled that the stocky man with the silver beard had addressed Prince Baelor as brother. He is blood of the dragon as well. Damn, I'm such a fool. He can only be Prince Maekar, the youngest of King Daeron's 4 sons. Prince Aerys was bookish, and Prince Rhaegal mad, meek, and sickly. Neither was like to cross half the realm to attend a tourney. But Maekar was said to be a redoubtable warrior in his own right, though ever in the shadow of his elder brother. You wish to enter the list? Is that it? Asked Prince Baelor. That decision rests with the master of games, but I see no reason to deny you. The steward inclined his head. As you say, my lord. Dunk tried to stammer out thanks, but Prince Maekar cut him off. Very well, sir, very well, you're grateful. On with you. Be gone. You must forgive my noble brother, sir, said Prince Baelor. 2 of his sons have gone astray on their way here, and he fears for them. The spring rains have swollen many of the streams, said Dunk. Perhaps the princes are only delayed. I did not come here to take counsel from a hedge knight, Maekar declared to his brother. You may go, sir, he told Dunk, but not in an unkind fashion. Yes, my lord, he bowed and turned. But before he can get away, the prince called after him. Sir, one more thing. You are not of Sir Arlen's blood, are you not? Yes, my lord. No, I am not. The prince nodded at the battered shield Dunk carried, and the winged chalice upon its face. By law, only a true-born son is entitled to inherit a knight's arms. You must needs to find a new device, sir, a sigil of your own. I will, said Dunk. Thank you again, your grace. I will fight bravely, you'll see. As brave as Baylor Breakspear, the old man would often say.